Today, in the Level 9 laboratory, I'll be combining the Great Unclean One of Nurgle with Bebop
from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Please like and subscribe, it would mean the world to me. I'm just starting this channel out and I would really appreciate the support. Also leave a comment and let me know if you have any other ideas that you might want to see on the channel. It all starts with a very simple drawing. Just starting off with the legs and getting the way the body kind of looks, figuring out a decent position for this particular beast to be in. A lot of the early designs that I had from this sketch changed as I modeled, but that's kind of the joy of working with a model in clay is instead of erasing, you can kind of make a mistake, and that mistake ends up being actually better than your original idea. Of course, we have to have the iconic Bebop sunglasses. Whenever I see purple shades like this, it really is only on one character, and that character is Bebop. The idea of a Great Unclean One wearing these shades with a mohawk and the septum piercing just seemed so cool to me, as it all kind of works with the Great Unclean theme. A bunch of the other kind of more iconic parts of Bebop are the bracelet that he has, and he's got a big vest. I decided to leave the vest out. I felt like it would cover too much of the model. I thought about putting rags that were pinned to the body, but something about it just didn't work the way I was hoping it would. Of course, you have to have those turtle shoulder pads. And his toothed necklace, which I modified quite a bit, but I hope you guys all enjoy how it turned out. And here we are with a little bit closer to what our final product is going to look like. Just doing some of the more iconic Bebop additions. We've got the Nurgle body style down, just adding the mohawk, adding some rings, the necklace, and of course, a big open wound on the middle of the stomach, gaping with teeth. I ended up not keeping the teeth. This is a little foreshadowing for later, and I think it turned out a lot better than just having a bunch of teeth in this open maw. And there's the final sketch, just kind of cleaned up. Got that strap on his shoulder as well. Onto the armatures. Starting out with a very small armature, it quickly gets quite a bit bigger. I'm using these birch clamps that I made. With the armature looking good, I'm on to the next step, which is aluminum foil. Aluminum foil is used to really bulk out the model. It fills in a lot of those gaps, it saves you on clay, and it makes the curing process once you cook the clay a lot quicker, as you don't have to wait for pounds and pounds of clay to dry. I have very little experience with polymer clay, so this was a complete adventure for me. I've never really had the opportunity to make anything. I've used green stuff when building Warhammer, but this was totally different. Such an interesting material that as soon as you bake it, it becomes hard as a rock, although a little bit too brittle for me. So our goal here is to make the Great Unclean One look as much like a Christmas turkey as you possibly can. The clay that I used here is a little too thin. I think next time I would go with a little bit of a thicker first coat, as it became quite brittle and cracked as I put pressure on it. And the only place to start, I guess, is from the bottom. So we're working on the Nurgle style foot. Getting all those little toe grooves, and of course all the little cuticles for the nails. These are pretty common tools used actually for wax carving. I found a bunch of them at a local hobby store and knew that they would be perfect for this project. And our open wound counter starts at 1. Carving out more details in the flesh here, I'm using these silicone tipped sculpting tools. Now I got 2 different varieties. One of them is a bit more dense and the other one's quite a bit softer. I actually ended up using the ends of these tools quite a bit just to dig into little holes and to round out and flatten a lot of the clay. And the initial bulking out of the model begins. Adding a lot of big flat lumps of clay here, and I'm trying to make him look like he's fat and lumpy. And our open wound counter goes to 2. Adding in some extra fleshy bits. And of course, you cannot miss the belly button. I'm using the ball stylist end of the sculpting tool to kind of push holes into the model. Makes it look like there's pustules of fat in the flesh. I also wanted to make the flesh look like it was rotting and falling off, so I pulled it away from the skin and added other parts of hanging skin. And the open wound counter goes to 3. Adding more detail to this open wound, just kind of make it look like it's really rotting out. And after the second bake, it's on to the arm. A great way to add detail to the model I found was using these little snakes. They can be squished and mashed into the rest of the model to add great detail. And the open wound counter goes to 4. By dabbing the model with the sharp end of this silicone stick, I've gotten this nice skin style effect. It looks like it's all crusty, like an elbow. And starting some detail on the back, trying to make it look like the skeletal system is getting pulled at by the skin, yet the skin is hanging off. And on to adding more bulk onto the front. Using rolls of clay to simulate rolls. And of course, 3 holes in the thigh, just to let everybody know that Nurgle is here. The position of his other leg didn't allow for a lot of detail on the foot. He's kind of kneeling on top of his own toes. I think it ended up just the way I wanted it to. I wanted to add some type of effect on the skin to make it look like he's growing things. So here it is. And the open wound counter goes to 5. Tentacle here is foreshadowing for things to come. Open wound counter goes to 6. Comes with a tentacle this time. And here you can see the completed back. I worked on it quite a bit off camera, but the best part, the wound counter goes to 7. Nurgle would be so proud. And here I am using the tools as they're intended, of course. A great way to get a dry skin effect is kind of just dabbing at the clay with the sharp end of any tool. And we're onto the hands. I started out with just a flat piece of clay and cut out where I thought the fingers were going to be. Then pushed in the webs of the fingers, kind of pinched them and rolled them and formed them into the desired size of the fingers that I wanted. Then using my own hand as a reference, I started on creasing all the palm and the fingers. And it looks like he's reaching out for a nice big hug. If you look closely here, you can see that almost all the fingers have been broken off, so I've had to support them with more clay, sadly. And the open wound counter goes to 8. I wanted to capture the tendons in the back of the hand. Again, I used my own hand as reference here. I really just wanted to get that look like it's rotting flesh underneath, and that the tendons are showing through the open wound. And now onto those iconic turtle shoulder pads. Added a strap underneath the arm. And we're onto the head. I added the eyes, even though you're not going to see them because they're going to be hidden behind some really cool shades. They were just a reference point. You can also see lying in the background the other head I was trying to design, but it just didn't work the way I wanted it to. This was the part where I started to get nervous. The other parts are all easy to do because you can make a lot of mistakes and it kind of just blends into the feel of it being a nasty, evil Nurgle model. But the face, you really have to get right. And being inexperienced with polymer clays and the tools I was using, I really knew that this was make or break for how this model was going to turn out. Trying to get the mouth just right took quite a bit of time. I hollowed out some spots for the teeth, I plumped up the lips, I scarred up the skin a little bit to make it look more like a pig's hide, and tried to match what I thought a pig's face mixed with a human mixed with Nurgle would turn out to look like. Now digging out some holes for those tusks and teeth. And I'm happy with how it looks so far. And on to my favorite part of the model, these iconic sunglasses. I have not seen these sunglasses on any other comic book character or superhero or anything. And now onto those adorable little ears. After pinching, rolling, pulling, and squeezing them, I think I've got the right shape, and I do a little test run to see if it works. Test run looks good. Time to put on the other one and attach them to the head just by rolling the clay onto itself. Using a small gauge armature wire, I've bent it into a circle, and I'm going to attach it for his septum piercing of his nose. Looks like a good fit. Using my hobby knife, I just kind of scratched at the surface and the sides, dabbing the knife, the sharp end of the knife in. If you do it repeatedly in succession, it makes a lot of small cuts and gives the illusion of strands of hair. Once I attached it to the top of Bebop's skull, I dug out a whole bunch of it. I didn't want it to look clean like it is in the comic book. After putting the head on the first time as a test fit, I realized I needed to bulk out the neck and the top of the shoulders a lot, or else it just was not going to look right. So I added a whole bunch of more little snakes and rolled them out, try to give layers upon layers, rolls upon rolls. And of course, had to do it the same for the other side. Using the sharp end of my silicone sculpting tool, I just kind of dab away at the flesh. It adds a lot of little creases that gives the illusion that this is actual pig hide. And continuing on with the Mohawk, using the same technique I used before, using the sharp end of my hobby knife to tap away at it, gives the illusion of hair, then just attaching it onto the sculpt and hoping that it all flows. To do the ponytail, I had to make a frame out of armature wire. There was not really a way I could make this comfortably and not have it snap off. I realized after baking this clay a couple times, it does get quite brittle. And I think it turned out pretty good. Instead of crafting this Bebop Nurgle a necklace, I instead decided to have the teeth from the necklace just protrude out of the neck flesh. So I'm making a bunch of holes here to eventually fill in with small teeth that I bake later. He also has a strap running all the way across his chest, so I had to add that detail as well. Now all those open wounds have to be filled with something, so I decided to go with tentacles. My original drawing had a bunch of teeth, but I feel like the tentacles added so much more depth than just static teeth in a mouth. Also, the fact that he had so many teeth coming out of his own mouth and now out of his neck, I felt like I was kind of going to overdo it. But I feel like the tentacles turned out really well. I really like the look that all these open wounds are kind of getting exploded out by these tentacles, almost like there's some type of squid monster inside of him trying to work its way out. And my inexperience really shines right here. I did all of his teeth and his tongue, and I baked him a little too close to the top rack. This caused a charring and browning on his hair and on his ear. Going from the darkness of the warp to real space is a real shock on the eyes, so he's gotta be wearing those shades. I had a leftover Nemesis Dread Knight sword, and I figured it would look really cool if he was holding on to an enemy's weapon and it was kind of hurting him, so I gave him this sword and some like fiery flare coming off of it, exploding out of his hand. I also knew that building it out of polymer clay, it would be way too brittle and surely would break. A big thanks for watching this far, and I hope you really enjoy our final creation.
Please hit the bell icon, like and subscribe, leave a comment if you want to. I'd really like to hear what you guys think, and stick around because part 2, I will be painting this.